a major development from the White House. Several messages from President Trump on the Israel-Iran conflict that is now on its fifth day as Israel aims to wipe out Iran's nuclear sites. The president's word, unconditional surrender, posted within the last hour on Truth Social. This comes as he has called a meeting of his top national security advisors in the White House Situation Room. We have team coverage on this breaking news. We'll get some perspective from CBS News contributor Dan Raviv. But first, let's go to CBS News senior White House correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed, great to be with you. Some surprising posts from the president in that last hour. What stood out to you?
Well, the president has said a few things regarding sort of what America knows and what it might be getting involved in here. Let's begin with the one that came about 40 minutes ago, a little more than 40 minutes ago, where he suggested we have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. We have sought clarity on who exactly is we. And a White House official tells us we is not necessarily, is not the United States. So we might be the U.S. and Israel collectively having some sense of situation over the skies of Iran. But explicitly, the United States, the White House press secretary tells us no, it is not that the U.S. has control of the skies over Iran. Later, he said we know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We are not going to take him out, and in parentheses, kill, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then the third tweet suggesting unconditional surrender. Under what conditions? What would be the to whom? What does that mean? Who would? Is this the entire country? Is it the supreme leader and his regime? Unclear.
Yeah.
What we know is the president is expected to meet in the coming hours with his national security team here to further assess the situation. One indicator, Elizabeth, that we often have here at the White House is we don't see a Marine standing outside the front door of the West Wing. When they're there, the president is in the West Wing, the Oval Office, the Situation Room. There has been no Marine there all morning long. So if he is doing this, he's conceivably doing it from the White House residence, the upper floors of the main part of the House, and not from his office, not from the Situation Room. But the indications are now he will meet this afternoon with his national security team to further assess the situation. Of course, remember, it is usually in the afternoon East Coast time, midday out in the West, that things start to happen in the Middle East again because the sun has gone down and the operations commence. So we'll see to what extent the United States might engage in those later. No indications of direct U.S. military involvement so far.
A lot was revealed, though, in those tweets, Ed. And Vice President J.D. Vance also posting about Iran on social media. What did he have to say?
So this is an interesting development, and it speaks more to the growing domestic political debate over whether or not the United States is about to engage in another foreign war. Earlier this morning, he tweeted out in part essentially a defense of the president's actions so far. Now, it says there in part, the president has shown remarkable restraint in keeping our militaries focused on protecting our troops and protecting our citizens. And that is true. Over the last week or so, the U.S. has made clear to Iran, if you touch U.S. military or diplomatic outposts in the Middle East, there will be a forceful military response. And again, in that tweet about the supreme leader, he suggested the same. But Vance goes on to say, he may decide he needs to take further action to end Iranian enrichment. That decision ultimately belongs to the president. And of course, people are right to be worried about foreign entanglements after the last 25 years of, as he put it, idiotic foreign policy. He's responding to elements of the president's base, elements of the Republican Party and the MAGA movement, who are opposed to U.S. military engagement overseas. And remember, for the last 10 years and one day, since President Trump, then Donald Trump, came down the escalator at Trump Tower in Manhattan, he has been forcefully critical of previous U.S. military engagements in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other conflicts around the world, and has been consistent in saying that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. So Vance appears to be responding to that criticism from commentators like Tucker Carlson, from a handful of Republican legislators, including this afternoon Rand Paul, the Republican senator from Kentucky, who say that the United States should not be doing this. There is, of course, another element of the Republican Party, the neoconservatives, guys like Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Tom Cotton of Arkansas, who on Face the Nation and in other ways have been saying the president should conceivably join Israel in this military operation and take these steps. And so it appears now the vice president defending the president's record and trying to leave the permission space there for him to potentially directly engage in this Israel-Iran war.
Ed O'Keefe, live for us at the White House. Ed, thank you so much for going over that new information for us. Always great to see you. All right, let's go to CBS News contributor Dan Raviv. Dan, what are you hearing about that message from President Trump where you are?
Everyone in the Middle East is wondering, what does he mean? They are impressed, and especially the Israelis. I'm hearing the media from several countries in the Mideast, but especially from Israel. They're amazed. Frankly, Israelis are pleased that apparently Donald Trump has decided to take Israel's side. At the beginning, when Israel staged a surprise attack on Iran, trying to smash the nuclear program and Iran's ballistic missiles, President Trump was kind of keeping a distance, right? You'll recall a message issued by Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that the U.S. had nothing to do with it. All we care about is protecting U.S. forces in the Middle East, so Iran better not hit them. But something happened in the past few days, and I have to say, in the pattern of U.S.-Israel relations, it means that Israelis and friends of Israel got through to the president. He probably heard arguments on both sides, but he is absolutely on Israel's side, even using that pronoun we, as though we, the United States and Israel acting together, are dominating the skies, and we know where the supreme leader of Iran is. It's really something, and people are trying to figure it out, of course, precisely what he means.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that tweet about Iran's supreme leader saying that we know where he is, but are deciding essentially not to kill him. You know, Benjamin Netanyahu was asked about that yesterday. He also kind of gave a non-answer to that. If that is his intention, is to completely overhaul the Iran's regime there. I'm curious if you think President Trump is viewing keeping the regime intact as a negotiating plot, because that's who he's been talking with in terms of essentially getting rid of the nuclear program there. Does he want to keep the current regime in place because those are the people he knows?
Sure, Liz. I mean, that in effect would be the deal, right? You cannot keep your uranium enrichment. You cannot keep your program that the U.S. and Israel believe was aimed at building nuclear weapons, but you can survive. You can still be the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we're not going to try to overthrow you. I wonder how rapidly a deal can be struck in which some sort of guarantee is given to the Ayatollah and his regime. But those would be the general outlines, one would think. Israel might be disappointed. They absolutely would love the notion that Iran could never again work on a nuclear bomb, but they're also concerned about the 2,000 long-range ballistic missiles that Iran had as of 2 weeks ago, though Israeli officials say that Iran now seems to have only about 700 left. But you know, every one can do a lot of damage if it gets through Israel's defenses.
Yeah, and it's interesting because many people in Iran would welcome a regime change. But I got to ask you, what is the situation right now in Israel? Are airstrikes still going on? We know it's nearly nightfall there.
Well, first, in Israel, where people are ready at a moment's notice to go into a shelter or the safe room in their residence, if they're lucky to have one, not all Israelis do, that situation still is continuing. But this afternoon, Middle East time, there was a warning, red alerts everywhere, and the number of missiles that came from Iran was 2. And so Israelis are figuring maybe Iran is trying now not to waste missiles, kind of ration them out, shake up the Israelis, but just 1 or 2. You know, overall, at least 24 Israelis have been killed. But Israel also knows that on the other side, in Iran, and Israel says these were targeted people, of course, 224 at least are dead. And I apologize about the light that went out.
CBS News contributor Dan Raviv, thank you so much, sir. Great to see you.